Hey everyone, in our final tutorial here we're going to take our character from 3D Max, so he's already rigged and skinned, and we're going to put him into Unity. So let's just get to that. So open up your character in 3D Max. It should be your fully rigged character. It should look something like this. You should have, you should be happy with your skinning at this point and all that. So let me just get out of animation mode here. So you should be pretty happy with your skinning. My character turned out okay. He's not the greatest, but he's pretty good. Now this strap was really hard. Most games you would do some separate bones for that, but you kind of do what you can with a simple rig. So anyways, we have our character. We're all good to go here. So what we're going to do is I don't have anything in my scene, so I don't have to select all the things I want to export. So I recommend you either delete everything out of your scene that you don't need, or if you want to keep some stuff, either hide it and then just select your mesh and all your bones, your entire rig here. Go to File, Export, Export Selected, or Export if you got nothing else in your scene, and export that wherever you like as an FBX. So let's just do that. Goblin. So I did say export wherever you like, but you really should export into your Unity scene that you have. If you don't have that already, that's okay. You can copy and paste it. But if you have to make any edits, it's always easier just to export right into your scene. So hit save. And what you're going to have on here, we'll take a look at some of the settings. So we're going to include our geometries, things like smoothing groups, and most of this stuff's okay. You could have preserve edge orientation on. I'm going to include my animation just to make sure my rig and all that stuff comes along just fine. You don't need to have bake animation on. And that's really it. Most of the other stuff it shouldn't take. The one thing I recommend you not do, which I know is fine for certain scenes and things like that, don't embed media. It's not something we typically do in a game environment. It can cluster things in a really weird way, and can clutter up files and just bloats your FBX. You want your FBX to be nice and small. So just hit OK on that. You should export. You might get an error with some of this cat stuff here, but don't worry about it. If your digits and things are coming in properly, just hit OK, and you should be good to export. So once you're happy with that, you're gonna have to go on to Blackboard, and I posted an announcement for it now. But if you can't find it, it's under Course Documents, and there are Unity assets here. So just follow this link. Just copy that over. Paste it. It should look something like this when it finally pops up. It should be your character showcase zip. So just with that selected, hit the little download arrow. Download anyways. Select where to save it. Once you have that file, it's a zip file, so just unzip it. This is an entire project file, so put it wherever you want to work out of and all that. You're going to be handing in this entire character showcase back to me, so just make sure you don't lose it and all that. We'll be doing lots of work in there. Once you have that done, there's two files in there, two map files, that is to say, or scenes. One is called Animator Controller, and one is called Character Showcase. The very first thing we're going to do is work in our Animator Controller. So have that open. It should look something like this. I didn't make this. It's a free thing for Mecanum, Unity. What you're going to want to do in here is, if you haven't exported your character right into your project, is create a new folder. Call it, whatever your character is. So mine's Goblin. So I already have a Goblin, so this one copied it over. So either export right out of 3D Max into here, or just you could do Show and Explore. Open up your Goblin folder and copy over all your FBX that you exported from your Goblin into here. And also copy over your textures, so your diffuse and your normal maps. And they should look something like this. So I have a materials folder here, which you could kind of ignore for now. I have my Goblin mesh, I have my diffuse for my body, normal map for my body, diffuse for my head, and normal map for my head. So it's all in here. It's a little messy. I should probably go in here and create a textures folder. And when I bring my stuff in, put it in there, and then have my materials in my materials, and clean it up all nice like. So you should have that in there with your goblin exported. Drag him in next to my guy. So some of your characters might come in really small if your units weren't set up okay. So just try and scale your dude up so he's more or less the same height as my goblin. Look at that, perfect. So if you again, if your dude's a different scale, just scale him or her up and match that. When you're ready to move on, we're going to actually look at our goblin import settings. So select your goblin. I keep calling him goblin. Select your character. We're going to look at the character import settings. So select them in the project view and go to your inspector. You'll be able to see them down in here too. So we'll take a look at the first thing here. So by default, you'll have import blend shapes on. You can turn those off since we don't have any. Doesn't really matter. Make sure your normals and tangents are set on import and calculate respectively. And for import materials, this is kind of however you like to work. By default, it's import by base texture. Sometimes it's nice to do by model material, and it'll name it actually what you named it in 3D Max. Doesn't really matter. You just hit apply on that. Next, and most importantly, is your rig. By default, you might be set to generic. Make sure you set your rig to humanoid, and make sure the avatar definition says create from this model, and just hit apply. And under animations, by default, import animations will be on. If you don't have anything in here, that's fine. Just check off import animations. You don't need those. Hit apply, and you'll be done with your import settings. So if we hit play, you might get a couple things here. Let me show you my my game window here. So my goblin here, you know, I can run forward with him, but I can't turn left and right. That's actually my bad. The files I gave you were a little messy. If you click on the goblin that I have, you'll see he has two animators on him. There's one that's has an avatar called Goblin Avatar, and another one that's just U character. Just remove the one with the U character. That's just my bad for leaving it in there. So now when you run around, you should be able to run left and right with this character. Left mouse button, you should be able to jump, do a little kind of somersault there. And with your right mouse click, you'll be able to wave. Alright, so we're going to get your character up and running like this in no time. So what you're going to want to do is take a look at the two characters side by side and basically mimic what's on this one onto your own. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is find where this layer is under the animator. So click on that. It'll bring it up in the project view. Select your character and drag that layer into its animator controller. Then you're going to want to copy and paste these two scripts on here with the idle run jump and the character controller script. And the way we do that is you just right click on it, go to copy component, go to your other character, make sure you're on the very root level. Right click over transform or animator and go to paste component as new, and do that for the other one as well. And last but not least, well I guess second last but not least, your capsule here might be very different than the one that's on my character. Yours might be really high up or really low or possibly gigantic. So just use these center and radius and height modifiers here just to scale around your capsule and raise them up. And basically your capsule here is what you're going to be running on. So make sure that the bottom of the capsule is at the bottom of the feet of your character. That's his actual collider. And now last but not least, the last thing you're going to have to do for the camera to work is select your character, go to tag, and change it to player tag. And with that, you should be able to play as both characters. And every time you play, your camera will pick one of the players, whichever one it happens to find first that time. There we are. So you just delete the old one. I'm going to delete this guy, pretend that's my old one. And you should have your character on its own, running around. Alright, and that's pretty much it for this part of it. A couple troubleshooting things I saw in class, aside from the scaling colliders and things like that. Some people weren't able to get their hand up, or some of their animation just was not working. So let's take a look at some of the things that might be a problem with that. Select your character in your project view. Go back to the import settings and go under Rig, and open up under Avatar Definition. There's a little button called Configure. Just click on that. It'll ask you if you want to save your scene, and you'll get this separate utility here, which is kind of like a bone and mapping tool. So we have muscles and we have mapping and all that stuff. So basically what we're trying to do is we're taking a character that is not this character, that's the mocap character, and applying its animations onto this. So what we're doing is we're putting kind of like a little in-between step. So the mocap information is assigning movement and rotations to these generic body parts, and then you're telling what these generic body parts are on your mesh. And so by default it does a pretty good job. It understands what's the pelvis, all of that, and whatnot. Sometimes it may be missing. Sometimes you might have red in on some of your details here, or just some things might not be picking up. Some of these might be blank. Sometimes you might have to go into here and drag in the appropriate bone to your mesh. And sometimes, if your character is not in a full T-pose when you get him in here, you notice I did not model my character like this. He had his hands on the side, and it forced him in this T-pose, and that's just its way of helping to map these two characters together. If yours isn't in that, on the bottom of this little guy, you could go to Pose, and then Enforce T-pose, and it'll snap your character into that, and then just hit Done, or hit Apply first, and then Done, or do both like that, and then when you get back in here, your character should work at this point. So that's kind of the biggest troubleshooting things I've seen. One other thing you may want to play around while you're in here, we're going to do this a little bit in the next step. We didn't cover this in class too much, but if you want to have some fun with this, you can select your character, and if you notice that I made you guys drag this layer controller into here. This is one that was just made by that Unity default player that was available. If you double click on him, it's going to take you to this animator. Now, we didn't cover animators in class too much, but I'll briefly give you a little overview if you haven't dealt with them. So each of these little states here is an animation. So you'll see this one says jump, this one's a blend tree, which we'll explain in a second, and this one's your idle. So the orange one is what your character starts in. So if we take a look at this animator here, there we go. You select your character, your layer, it should open up that, there we go. So now as we play, you'll see when we start the game, this little guy here, that's our little animation just timeline. So it's playing through the idle, and as I start moving, it switches to run. It switches to jump if I jump, and here there's another layer for all the arms. So null state is when nothing's going on. When I click, it switches it to wave, plays through its wave, and then transitions back. So what's basically happening here is we are throwing animations in to this controller, and these little guys in between are your transitions between each animation. So if I click on this, you'll see here we're going from idle to run, and if you notice right here, right, idle, 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 and then that is our transition to run. And we could set this to be really long if we wanted to really transition from run. So you'll see he'll take a couple little steps and then run, right, little step, run. So that all kind of depends on the look and feel that you want from your game. And what these are doing here, these are your conditions for when this transition should happen. And they've set up a condition of speed. So if the speed is greater than 0.1, and in their code they set up what speed is, what that means, and you know, what the scale is. But when it passes 0.1, it plays that transition and then goes to the run animation. The run animation is actually a blend tree. If you double click on this run, this one is now, if you're in a certain amount of speed, that past 0.1, you're in here, and then this little guy determines your direction. So if you take a look at the character down here, as I move this direction, it will change which animation it's using, run left, run right, and this is also determined by code to, you know, usually about how you're clicking left and right. It'll change the direction in here. And this basically allows us to change one variable and have this control the transitions and look of your animation without having to fire, okay, I'm holding left, play left animation. Oh, I'm holding straight again, play straight run animation. This lets us just control a direction variable and control animations through that way. And you have different types of transitions you could do or conditions. So this one is just a bool. So when I click the jump button, my code sets the jump bool to be true, and it plays the jump, and then it waits 0.9 seconds and then transitions back into run. So that's a timed condition. It'll wait, and you can make different parameters and set up many other animations. One fun thing you can do if you like, you can take this jump. If you click on it, it'll open up the animation here for jump. You can take a look at some of the other animations that might be available with your character. So let's see here. We got run, idles. What else do we have here? Jumps. So you only have the one jump for now. I guess he does. I thought he had like a dive and stuff like that. I think there's some other ones here. Let's search for some of these. There we go. There's a few other ones. There's wave. I guess that's all the ones we're using. You can bring in other animations from the asset store. You can find some free ones you could bring in. And what you could do is actually switch out what this jump is. So you could switch it to wave, or if you had a dive, other kind of stuff. And you can play around with what your character does on these button presses if you just wanted to have something to play with and have some fun. And you know, play around with some of those timeouts and stuff. And I mean, just break your mesh and see what it looks like. It's the best way you're going to understand it. But that's it for this part. So you're going to be able to kind of get your character running around. So this is what I want to see. I want to open up your scene when you hand this in, and I just want to be able to run as your character. And I always find this rewarding because even though it's mocap and it might not match the scale and kind of look of my character, it's always nice to see him run around doing his thing. So your next file you're going to open up is, if we go back down to the scenes here, is our character showcase. And oh, this one's really bright. Let's take a look at why you're so bright here. So I just made you a little pedestal with some lights, and there's just 3 lights around them, so I didn't realize mine was so bright. You might want to turn that down. You got blue light here. So what I typically like to do is I just do like a little 3-point light setup. So I do a key light that's kind of orange to showcase a lot of your main normals and things like that. I do kind of like a back side kind of light that's blue. Sometimes I put it on the other side if I really feel like it, like that. Looks really nice too. So it kind of depends what look you want to go for. And then this is a white light I have on this side. I can always move it around to the other side as well if I think that will look better. Oops, I moved that into the ground. 1 second here. So play around with the lights, kind of get a look that you want, right? Intensity wise, you might want like a really bright character, maybe you don't. So you can play around with that. And I also made this little mesh here. It's just a curved plane. This is just your backdrop. That way you don't have any seams or hard edges along the back. You could change around the color of this thing too. So just click on main color. You can make it kind of red, you know, white or blue, whatever kind of suits your color or your look. And he's got some kind of crappy lines there, which isn't that great. I should have added some more detail in there, so you can maybe squish that and kind of move that along. You may want to just turn the spec down on that too if you don't like how that looks. That looks a little better, actually. I shouldn't have left the spec so high. There we go. So, you know, kind of what you like. I usually like a brighter background for my character. All right, this is a specular. You could always change it to self-illum. And just have kind of like a flatter looking background as well. So, you know, showcase that however you like. This scene is really just for you guys, just to take some screenshots. By default, it's set to, it should be set to 1080p. If it's not, and you want to take some nicer shots, you can go to you go to player settings, go to file, or sorry, edit, project settings, and player, and you could do default is native resolution. You could turn that off and then set it to 1920 by 1080, and then that way when you play the game and you take some screenshots, it'll look a lot nicer. I threw a couple things on the cameras as well. I threw a little bit of a bloom. You can always play around with that too if you want to make your character look really glowy or hazy or whatever. And I made 3 cameras for you, so if you turn off the one camera, you turn on the other ones. They're just a little bit of close-ups and from different angles. You don't necessarily have to use my cameras if you want to move around and find your own scene. You know, you're more than welcome to do that. And that's pretty much it. And then the last thing, if you like to take a video, if you're not just if you don't just like screen captures, you can select your character and make your own controller. And what I did here for my character, let's just start that from scratch. I went to right-clicked on here, went to create, and I went to create animation controller. Just call that whatever. And I assigned them to my character, and I double-clicked it. And what I did is I just found my animation clips, especially if you brought other ones from an exterior package. So let's say I just wanted to do idle. I would just bring that in. It's already the orange one, so it'll play it by default. And now when I play it, my character will just move around, plays idle animation, and you get a little bit of something like that. If you guys really want to get fancy, you can bring in a rotate independent script and rotate these guys together from your rapid game development project. I'm not a big video guy myself, being an environment and artist. We usually just do screenshots, which show quite nicely. And you can nicely throw them in on the web and all that, and you just hit play, maximize this guy, and get some nice screenshots for your character. Even if if you have an idle on him, if you don't, that's fine too. And looks like my thumbs are doing some crazy things. That looks really painful. Oh, terrible. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. So this is more a file for you. I'll look at it too, so please have it in there. But I'll mainly be marking you on your other scene here. Let's just clear this out. So I will be marking you on this. I'm going to pop this open. I'm going to hit play. And I expect your character to be running around, jumping, and waving. And so that's that. That's the end of the tutorials. And hope you guys had a good time. Hope you enjoyed them. And keep track of this YouTube channel. I'll be posting more stuff definitely next year as well when I refine this course and go through that. So always keep track of that, and feel free to email me with all your characters and if you have any help or anything like that you need. So let me know. But thanks for following along.